Welcome. This is the part three of our series on what to do with your NGLCC certification. We have John Walsh talking about Comm-Buys 101, and we have the chat open and the Q&A feature open. So if you want to ask a question during the webinar, you're welcome to ask either place. I'll be keeping an eye on it, and there will be some time for questions and answers after. With that, I will hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Gabby. So yeah, my name's John. I worked at the state government as a purchasing agent for quite some time, a couple years ago. I also worked on the Comm-Buys help desk, so I'm very familiar with the purchasing system that they use there and how frustrating it can be for lots of people. So I'm here today to offer some useful pointers on how to register and how to make appropriate use of the system, because I know it can be very tricky for a lot of people. So I wanted to start off by just making a note on the state's purchasing rules. They are very complicated, and I encourage you not to read very hard into them, but at least understand at a high level what they are, especially in relation to statewide contracts, because I know that's an exciting thing for a lot of NA LGBTCC certified businesses to take advantage of. But I definitely want to advise you not to stop at the statewide contracts because they're simply one aspect of the state's and all governments within Massachusetts purchasing program. The big point here being that the only entities required to use statewide contracts are the state executive purchasing agencies. So that does not include entities like the legislative or judicial branch of Massachusetts, municipal governments, or school districts, for example. But nevertheless, all these entities are required to use Comm-Buys. So you will still interact with them through Comm-Buys. It's just that you need to understand once you're on a statewide contract that there are some limitations to the way it's used, and you may need to consult with state purchasing agents about whether or not a statewide contract is being used for a particular bid or not. Another thing that came up as a question a lot on during my time as a help desk agent was why people couldn't access certain bids when they were logged in. Generally, the answer to that is because the list was restricted to a company that was on a statewide contract. So just something to keep in mind as a caveat as we discuss some of these tips and tricks here. So the first item of business is registration on Comm-Buys. Generally speaking, the registration is pretty straightforward. There's a series of tabs. Some of them ask for basic business information. There's two areas where I think there can be a lot of confusion. So those are the ones that I wanted to cover really quickly. Namely, once you get to the certifications tab, you will not be able to select anything to say that you're a MBE or LGBT certified owned business. And the reason for that is because these fields are actually validated by the supplier diversity office at the state government. So you won't be able to select anything there because your registration, your company's tax ID will be checked against the diversity office records. So for that reason, it's very important to make sure that you've registered with the supplier diversity office, because even if you have your certification, this status won't necessarily show up in the Comm-Buys system. In fact, it won't show up until you make sure that you're registered with SDO. So to have the state recognize your certification, you have to make sure that you've registered through the homepage, which you can see the link here. If you go to mass.gov/SDO, you'll see this registration link that you can use to register if you have not registered already. That's the same link that you'd use to log in to check your registration. You always want to make sure that you use the same employer identification number or social security number that's associated with the business that you own, that you are using to bid on opportunities within Comm-Buys. That would be the same employer identification number, of course, that you use to register for Comm-Buys once you signed up for Comm-Buys for the first time. So it should match both with the SCO and with Comm-Buys, your account on both of those platforms. So once you begin your new registration, I circled the area where you begin on the registration page. You'll submit a copy of your NA-LGBTCC certificate once you register with the SCO office on the pages following once you've entered your employer identification or social security number. And then once you have successfully registered, your name will show up on the SCO directory, which I've provided here as a reference. The next step that can be confusing in the Comm-Buys registration process is the SBPP program. So under this tab, you are presented with some terms about the supplier small business purchasing program that the state government operates. So the rules of the program are pretty simple. If you employ a certain number of people or less, or make $150,000, or I believe it's, I don't want to quote the exact amount, but if your revenue falls within a certain amount, or you have a certain number of employees or less, then you qualify as a small business purchasing program eligible vendor. And the Massachusetts government is required to purchase using a small business when they have non-construction goods or services of $150,000 or less, as you can see from the notification here. What you want to do is, if you know from the OSC website that your business qualifies as a small business, you hit acknowledge here, and then once again, your federal employer identification number will be compared against Department of Revenue records, and the registration status will show up automatically on your Comm-Buys profile if you do in fact meet those eligibility criteria. And then once you're registered as a Comm-Buys eligible business, you will of course be able to submit bids for opportunities that show up in the Comm-Buys system. A lot of the tips that I'm going to provide here are actually things that you can do from the public pages at www.commbuys.com. You have to be logged in to submit any response to a bid, but for the most part, a lot of the searching and a lot of the ways you can use the system can be done using the public home pages. So the first thing I always recommend that a business does once they sign up for Comm-Buys is they familiarize themselves with the contract user guides. And the reason I recommend this is because the user guides have a lot of useful information that you can use when you're searching the Comm-Buys system or when you're adding information to your Comm-Buys profile. The link to the contract user guides is available directly from the www.commbuys.com homepage. And as I was just saying, you don't have to sign in to access the contract user guides. You just click the link that I've highlighted here on the slide. And then once you do that, you'll be taken to these navigation pages. The first one requires you to select a user guide by category. And then once you select the category, there are the actual individual statewide contracts that you can select from by clicking the links highlighted blue there. So for this one, for this presentation, I've used PRF 76. That's for management consultants, program coordinators, and planners. As an example, that's a very common contract that I find that MA LGBTCC members want to participate in, either that contract or services related to it. So what we see here is the front page of the PRF 76 user guide. All user guides follow this format, so any user guide you click on will look very similar to this. And you can see the most important sections are the contract manager. That's the state purchasing agent that is managing the contract, and their contact information is always available there. Of course, I recommend that you make note of that because that can always come in handy getting yourself visibility when there's a bid you want to participate in, or you want to gain more information about when the statewide contract will be bid next, for example. And they can answer any questions you might have about what you need to do in order to prepare yourself for participation in that bid. Just a very good resource all around. The next most important part is the UNSPSC codes. We call them commodity codes for short, because I know UNSPSC is a mouthful, but these codes are very important to both your profile and for searching. So you must make sure that you save them somewhere or write them down, have them on hand, because to make the best use of the Comm-Buys system, you're going to be referencing them again and again and again. I recommend you do the same thing with the PO number, because each statewide contract has a specific PO number record in the Comm-Buys system. The PO number is what you use to access the record and identify the record within the Comm-Buys system. You can see at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, I highlighted what the PO number looks like. You access that portion of the statewide contract user guide by clicking on Find Bid and Contract Documents in the header there. Then also the vendor list and contact information is important too. And I'll explain why closer to the end of this presentation. But the link for that section of the statewide user guide, statewide contract user guide, is also in the table of contents here. So we're next going to discuss how to use the PO number. As I mentioned before, make sure you copy and save that PO number somewhere, whether it's in a Word document or in a note on your desk, because you can publicly search for the contract record by going to the active blanket search or the advanced search from the Comm-Buys homepage. You can see in the left-hand corner at the top the two icons that you can click on from the Comm-Buys homepage that'll get you to this search. Of course, once you get to the search, make extra sure that the document type says blankets. A little counterintuitive, but that all statewide contract user guides are stored under what's called a blanket record. So make sure that's selected when you're performing the search, and then you can enter the PO number in the blanket number field at the top left-hand corner of the search engine right there. And once you hit search, it will take you to a list which appears in that blue box in the top right-hand corner of this slide. To access the contract the contract record, you click on the blanket number, and you can see it'll take you to this master blanket purchase order record page within Comm-Buys, where there's a lot of useful information. In particular, the agency attachments, show you the documents that were used to send the bid out to suppliers that were interested in participating to the statewide contract, so that you can use that as a guideline for any new bidding opportunities that come out for this statewide contract. The contract user guide is also available here. The contact for the purchasing agent is also listed here, just like it is in the user guide. And then importantly, on the master blanket purchase order, or sometimes it could be an individual category master blanket purchase order record, or an individual vendor master blanket purchase order record. They should have posted publicly, because it's a state requirement, any materials that a vendor might have submitted to participate and make a bid on the RFP that was done to solicit the statewide contract. So you'll be able to find information about competitor pricing and any other responses to the RFP that they might have provided, which provide information on their offering and where you might stand in comparison. So you can craft your own offer to the state when making one of these bids yourself. Then for the commodity or UNSPSC codes, once you've written them down, you do want to log in for this next step, because once you've logged in, the key thing you want to do is add them to your profile. By doing so, you will receive notifications from the state government as to available bids in the Comm-Buys system that pertain to your business, for example. Once you're logged in, there is a person icon at the top right-hand corner of the screen, which I highlighted here. You click on that icon, and then you click on Seller Administrator. It will then take you to this page where the first thing you want to click on is Maintain Organization Information. And then you follow the 2 pages highlighted here, so maintain commodity, EPPs, and services, and then the first option on the following page once you've selected that. Then you'll hit Add Additional Codes, and that will take you to a search engine that provides a drop-down list of all the different codes. So referencing the codes that you wrote down directly from the contract user guide, you can then search by this very specific code and then highlight all those codes that fall within that code category and add them to your profile. So that way, not only will you be notified of an opportunity to bid on a statewide contract, but you'll also be notified of any opportunity that may be outside the statewide contract that's being bid through the Comm-Buys system. Say, for example, a local municipality needs consulting on services related to education. You would get notified if they are not using the statewide contract, or for the actual statewide contract itself, of any bid that's relevant to your business within the Comm-Buys system. You'll receive those notifications through email once you save these commodity codes to your profile. And then also, similar to the master blanket purchase order search, which we use the PO number for, you can use the advanced search to look for bidding opportunities, independent of any notifications that you might get through email from the Comm-Buys system. You can do this by going back to that advanced search and making sure the document type is bid solicitations. And then, although it's counterintuitive, the commodity codes, although they're called UNSPSC codes within the user guide and elsewhere in the Comm-Buys system, in this search they're called NIGP codes. So you can see within that NIGP class field, the code looks very much the same as it does when you add it to your Comm-Buys profile. So it's essentially the same field, and it will give you very reliable search results for bidding opportunities that would be relevant to your company. And the search results just from this 80-10 commodity code are visible in that little blue box I provided in the right-hand corner of the screen. And then the last important order of business on the contract user guide is the list of vendors that were awarded the statewide contract and the contact information for the representatives for each of those vendors. The reason why this section is very important is because, as you can see from the highlighted portion here, the suppliers are required to commit a percentage of their earnings under the statewide contract to spend with a minority business enterprise certified by the Supplier Diversity Office of Massachusetts. So even beyond categories of business that you may be interested in providing a response on a bid to, these contract user guides come in handy for any sort of service because your line of business, your business may be able to, uh, you may be able to provide services for suppliers that are on statewide contract, even if the statewide contract itself is not for something that your business actually provides. The participating vendors on the statewide contract may have a need that your business can help them meet as part of their supplier diversity spend commitment. And with that, I'll open the board to any questions. And just so you're aware, you can contact chamber members such as, you can contact chamber representatives such as Gabby or Angie at any time and have them put you in touch with me. And I'm happy to walk you through some of the things that we discussed on this presentation today at any time.
Thank you for that offer, John.
My pleasure.
Mhm.
If people have any remaining questions or thoughts, you can put them either in the Q&A portion or in the chat. And the recording, like I said at the beginning, the recording of this will be up on our YouTube page once it's been edited, and we'll send out the recording once we have it all finished up. Again, feel free to reach out to me or Angie if you have any questions going forward, and we will send out this recording once we have it finished. Great. Thank you for your presentation. It was great.
No, thank you. My pleasure. And like I said, anybody can reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to help walk them through. It is very tedious, so but it's much easier than it actually looks on the screen.
Oh, that's good to know.
Awesome. All right. So I will end it, give you all the rest of your lunch hour back, and I will see you all at our next event.